Bună seara și bun găsit la interviurile Reperul TV, emisiunea care vorbește despre realitatea din Galați și Brăila. În această seară avem o ediție specială a emisiunii. Invitatul meu de la această oră este domnul profesor Doru Căstăian, prieten al emisiunii noastre. Bună seara, bine ați venit!
Bună seara, bine v-am găsit!
Spuneam, domnule profesor, că avem o ediție specială, deoarece emisiunea, în afară de acest scurt intro, face trimitere la un eveniment deosebit care s-a întâmplat în Galați în urmă cu câteva zile. Dați-ne mai multe detalii dumneavoastră, vă rog.
Mulțumesc și pentru invitație și pentru ocazia de a vorbi despre evenimentul de acum câteva zile. Este vorba despre prezentarea și lansarea cărții Top Class, Managementul și Leadership-ul școlar finlandez, o carte scrisă de Ari Poca, profesor, expert în educație, director de școală, președinte al Asociației Directorilor din Finlanda vreme de 20 de ani, expert al Comisiei Europene pentru Educație, un profesionist, aș spune, sintetizând într-un singur cuvânt, între ale educației, care a scris o carte extraordinară, o carte pe care am avut bucuria și privilegiul să o traduc în limba română. Și întrucât Ari Poca s-a aflat în ultimele zile în România pentru un turneu de lansare a cărții, turneul acesta n-a ocolit nici orașul Galați. Am avut o întâlnire frumoasă, o întâlnire caldă în Amfiteatrul Colegiului Național Vasile Alexandrii și le mulțumesc pe calea asta colegilor de acolo că ne-au fost alături. Și cum Ari a acceptat să filmăm și o emisiune, iar tu ai avut bunăvoința să ne inviți. Am fost aici alături de Ari Poca și de Elena Lotrean, care este consulul onorific al Finlandei în România, fondatoarea și directoarea școlii finlandeze ERI din Sibiu, o școală finlandeză în România, care, iată, face parte dintr-o rețea care se tot extinde. Anul trecut s-a deschis o școală finlandeză și în Cluj-Napoca. Anul ăsta se deschide una în Brașov. Pe listă sunt și alte orașe, chiar și București. București e foarte aproape să deschidă o școală finlandeză și de ce nu, Doamne ajută, să avem o școală finlandeză și la Galați.
Nu este prima dată când un invitat ocupă scaunul acesta de moderator. S-a mai întâmplat și cu Marian Coman atunci când a venit la Galați pentru lansarea unor cărți. Mi s-a părut mult mai interesant pentru telespectatorii noștri ca acest tip de dialog să nu fie un dialog, un jurnalist pune întrebări și invitații răspund. Nu, voi, cei prezenți aici în platoul de filmare, cu siguranță rezonați altfel, cu siguranță aveți un alt fel de a comunica și ajungeți mult mai ușor la telespectatori. Haideți să nu mai vorbim foarte mult despre felul în care percep eu acest lucru, să-i lăsăm pe telespectatori să urmărească o emisiune, practic, înregistrată aici în platoul de filmare, cu Doru Căstăian, pe post de moderator și invitat, Ari Poca, autorul cărții Top Class, Managementul și Leadership-ul școlar finlandez, o carte pe care o am chiar aici, am avut chiar norocul să primesc autografe și de la autor, dar și de la traducători, și Elena Lotrean, fondator al școlii finlandeze ERI la Sibiu. Ce o să vă urez decât vizionare plăcută.
Vizionare plăcută. Hello, good evening, dear spectators. Good evening, Elena.
Good evening.
Good evening, Ari.
Good evening.
Welcome in Galați. It's a real pleasure to have you here in Galați again, because it's not the first time that you are coming here in Galați. I think for Elena it's the first time, or not?
With you, yes, but
With me. Okay, you have a history
I
with
have a history with
our
Galați, yes.
city. Mrs. Elena Lotrean is the honorific consular of Finland in Romania.
The honorary consul?
The honorary consul of Finland in Romania, and the principal of Eri Finnish School in Sibiu. Ari Poca is educational expert. He has been school principal for lots of years.
Many decades.
Many years, yeah. The president of the Finnish Principal Association for
Yes.
20 years now, an educational entrepreneur, and the author of extremely interesting book. I mean, I'm talking about top class Finnish management and leadership that we now have in Romanian, thanks to a great translation, right?
Absolutely. I think that made the whole difference. So thank you for the translation.
Thank you. Ari, let's start with you. What brings you here in Galați today?
Okay, I can I can truly say that partly both of you, because you have been so much behind this book. Elena, first of all, because she believed that that could be something worth to translate, and of course you yourself, because you have translated the book and make this Romanian version. But we have now 8 cities tour going on. Kalas is number 6 on the row. Tomorrow is Bucharest, and then we still have the Constanța. We starting from Sibiu, Cluj, Brasov, Baku, and Iași. So it has been quite a fantastic tour, not only because promoting the book, but meeting also educators in each town and discuss Finnish education, Romanian education, and maybe we can say generally what is the good education.
Well, we'll come back later to this comparison between Finnish and Romanian education. But first of all, I would like to expand your answer a little by putting another question. I would ask, was this tour just about the book and meeting educators, or is it apart from a larger project to
Yes.
bring some Finnish good practices
Yes.
and ideas here in
Yes.
Romania?
Yes, since 2019 we have had quite a many of the, let's say, discussion with the Romanian educators, first in the ministry level, then in the city level, that can we bring some Finnish approach or Finnish aspects to Romanian education. Me myself, I started with Elena School in Sibiu, like the special assistant or special advisor, to helping the building the new curriculum, implemented maybe more the Finnish approach. After that, the city of Buzău coming very interested about it, and last year we started their teacher and principals training. And it looks like that there's more and more that kind of city level interesting. Not maybe the same model what we have already done, but something similar. So during this trip there has been also quite an interesting discussion about the further programs. So a little bit seriously, but also with the good humor, we have discussed with Elena that maybe I must move here for a longer time to living in Romania, because it looks like that there will be some interesting things to do.
Thank you. Rena, how did Ari attract you in this project of his? Do you believe in this project and this idea?
I'm not sure if he attracted me or I attracted him, because we always say that it was love at first sight. Educational love at first sight, yes, when we met in 2019 and we decided that we can build something really meaningful together. And we needed to start somewhere, so we started in Sibiu and our cooperation, where we already had Romanian Finnish school ERI for 4 years back then, 6 years now. And we worked on developing and concentrating more on piloting things. And that's how the school is a pilot school starting last year. And we are really implementing the Finnish curriculum and showing that it is possible to do quality education, adapted education to the local needs, to the national needs, and to have Romanian kids, Romanian parents, Romanian teachers. It is possible. We have everything is very nice in the Romanian system in written, when it comes to implementation, so it looks perfect on paper, and what we think it will bring success is exactly this practical approach that our Finnish colleagues have quite developed in the last 50 years, so 50 years, with all the patients in the world, and we can show that it is possible.
So the kids are okay, no? Just to say.
So it seems, yes. They are so far so good, no complaints.
One argument that's been frequently heard about coming from the side of the critics, let's call them critics of Finnish education, is that that this kind of education can be suitable for a country like Finland, but not necessarily suitable for a country like Romania, where we don't have the same respect for the law, or I don't know. It seems like a more anomic, more like a more chaotic social system. How would you respond to these critics?
I think that you cannot take a system and copy it, but you need to adapt it to the local realities, and this is what we're doing. Of course, some things that are working in Finland will not work in Romania. It's just as simple as that. So what I've learned from the Finnish is that you need to build up the process, whatever process suits you. When you build up the process, there's no democracy after that. We decide to go into that line. But while building the process, you can put in whatever serves you. So it doesn't have to just copy and take the Finnish part, but put whatever is helpful for you at the local level.
If I can add something, I think that when we started this new model of the Finnish education almost 50 years ago, we were also this country, totally different situation, that country would get the highest PISA marks. So we can also think about it that education as a one part of the building that kind of sustainable, good social life for our students, and then for, of course, when they are coming to working life, is the part of the longer project that. But starting somewhere is very important, and I think that the education can be something which changes also some other parts of society, not necessarily in the one night, but if you are patient enough, then I'm quite sure that the education is one of the key drivers to make that kind of educational change. Also in Romania, if you think about it in your country.
Yeah. This is a very interesting remark of yours, because many people who don't intimately know the Finnish system think that it's all the way democratic, from the bottom to the top, and the kids do whatever they want,
I have to argue with that.
Yeah. Only the things that they love to do. Yeah.
I think it's the best blend of discipline and creativity on the other side.
Yeah.
And let's not forget that discipline comes from the word disciple, being a learner of someone. So you are learning, and discipline is following your learning, and it's not about someone patting your shoulder every time you do something wrong, or making you do something. It's about you yourself and your ability to grow, to develop. And then creativity, there's a lot of creativity and innovation in the Finnish approach. And that's why I think it's the best mixture of both.
After all, we can say that you cannot have creativity without having discipline.
Yeah.
And the best creators, I would say that the best creators and the best innovators come from the people who best assimilated the tradition and the rules and the discipline. And this should be a truism, I think, in a talk about education, but I assure you it's not. Here in the public space, public opinion space in Romania, we kind of have this kind of polarization between a conservative view that it's only based on imposing the rules and keeping the old values safe and passing them to children the public view here in Romania is that I wouldn't say it's a public view, but it's a common myth that in Finnish school kids do whatever they want. The whole idea is that they just have to feel nice at school, and this well-being, this well-being concept is often seen is often reduced to kids feeling pleasure during school time. Mm-hmm. Is this a myth, or is there some reality in this view?
I think it's a partly myth, but of course everybody could ask that which kind of child is better in the school, the child who is well-being or child who is somehow forced to come to school. So I think it's also the question of motivation. I have been 26 years school principal, so I can truly say that we have rules and regulations. We ordered sometimes, but one thing which make us maybe a different one is that we try to participate our students to understand that what is behind our rules and regulations, that why we do as we do. So they have also their voice to say, like what we have done in CPU, that we have tried to give also to primary school students the voice, that they can say something that how they like their school look like. So maybe it's much more that the Finnish kids feel that these teachers and principal, they are listening us, and also not only the listening but also acting sometimes to make school more comfortable, more better place to be a learner. I think that I quite rarely use the authority, the authority over my students. I also always try to ask that, can you understand that we have 1,300 students in my school, that we must have some things what we do same way, otherwise this is total mess. Yeah. And that's maybe more like the discussion to get the students understand our meanings and our ideas, not so much that we order that you must do like this, because when you order somebody, you always get the resistance.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I want to add for the viewers to think of when you learn out of well-being versus when you learn out of fear. Which learning will last more? The fearful learning or the well-being learning? So I think most of the things I've learned after finishing school, after graduating school, were from a place of well-being, a need. I needed to learn them, but it was of my choice quite a lot. And that learning stays with me much more than things that I've learned out of fear.
If you ask me this, maybe rhetorically, but I will choose to answer you. I think that from a biological and psychological point of view, the both ways have been used by the human species. Humans can learn out of fear too, and it can be a pretty resistant type of knowledge. On the other hand, there is this other circuit that relies on internal motivation, good feelings, well-being, and maybe this path is somehow more difficult than the first one, but I think that's the more humane one, and I think that's the one that keeps the dignity of the learner intact after all. And I would like to ask you, Ari. You said in a very fresh interview, actually didn't yet appear, but I happen to know the interview because I translated it. You said that one of the most important questions that school system should ask itself is what kind of a pupil, what kind of a student do I want to deliver at the end of the educational process? What kind of human being I want to build? And I think I will return to what you said, Elena, that on paper things look fine, because if you look in the Romanian educational laws, you'll see that the educational ideal is some kind of generous, but somewhere things break, because we don't seem to be very good at I don't know, aiming to this ideal and putting it into practice. This question is for both of you. Where do you think the problem relies here?
Mm-hmm.
I think, and especially of what is written in the laws, that the education is child-centered. I don't think the education that we are providing now is child-centered. Is, I don't know, building-centered, principal-centered, teacher-centered, family-centered, society-centered, whatever center might be, but not necessarily child-centered. So we have so many formal things that we are going through that we kind of lose the children on the way. And we don't necessarily see them whenever we take decisions in public policies, in schools, in, I don't know, higher levels, middle levels, and so on and so forth. I don't think that the first person we think of is the child, but rather what's more convenient for us, for the teachers, for the institutions, then what's right for the children.
We don't see institutions as formed by people, no?
No.
As we see them as having a life of their own, and the important part is that the institution looks well. We had some resounding cases here in Romania in the last years, with the schools discouraging their pupils to take the final exams for
exactly.
to have good percentages on promoting and so on.
But Doru, if I continue about this Elena's answer, last September when we trained 15 principals in Buzău, I was asking them that where you need most help, because we have given you this kind of overview of how the building the new kind of school, and then they raised the hand and they say that we have so much reporting all the time, different kind of administration bodies, and then I asked that, please tell me about this reporting, and then they start to list, and there was numerous of different kind of organization who somehow running this education system. You know that the Finnish system is quite a simple one. We have the ministry up there who give the laws, then we have the one national agency which gives the curriculum, and then it's coming to implementation level, and especially the role of the municipalities and cities are quite important. So it's a very practical one, so we don't waste a lot of time to paperwork, but we waste a lot of time to do practical things in the school, and I think that's maybe one strength of the Finnish education. Okay, principals must report it sometimes something especially about how he or she has using the money, but that's maybe the biggest issue. What our local authorities want to know, that I'm not going over the budget. But then what happening there in the school, it's very much up to us. And to have this kind of very practical approach, it's also that then the teachers and principals can maybe concentrate more about this, the main issue, what is always the children and the child.
So it's after all about not forgetting that the children.
Why we're here, you know.
Yeah, I always used to joke that if it weren't for the children, we would have had a better education here in Romania. But they keep, I don't know, making problems to the teachers. Yeah, I would say that from what you're saying, I understand that this relationship between the principal and the other authorities that are somehow, I would say, structurally upper than his position, that this relationship is crucial and it's critical after all for how a school is run. Because if we have a principle that first care is not to, I don't know, not to get out of some prefigured attitude and model of pattern of behavior, then he will have this tendency to overlook what the children's real needs are. Please tell us, Ari, something. What do you think it's important for the Romanian readers and Galați readers to know about your book? Is it a book just for principals or for other kinds of people too?
I think it's all the educators, because it's its starting point is look the school through the lens of principle, but I think it's very much telling about how we implement together with the teachers, with the students, parents and other stakeholders the institution named school. So the school is actually, in the Finnish idea today, it's much more bigger than one house somewhere where we have some number of the students, but it's very much that kind of open learning community. So I think that maybe they could find some ideas about how important is that kind, the idea of that we trust each other very much. So local authorities, school principal, teachers, we think about it that everybody is trying to do their best in their own area. And we are a small country in Finland. You can almost say that everybody know each other in some level. But also I think that it's very important because many of the schools are doing things differently. They are not following maybe the same kind of curriculum model than the other school. So there's many times that kind of situation that you need some help. For example, local authorities, or even in Helsinki, our ministry. And I'm quite sure that almost every time you get the help, so making this kind of school system which nobody scare each other because doing something differently or doing sometimes even mistakes, for is also the learning situation. So it has given that kind of special feeling of what is very important, that we really think about it, that we are doing a valuable job. And this book tells quite a lot of values, because I think that that's also always the starting point in the Finnish education. When we start doing something new, we always starting to speaking about the values of society, the human values, maybe general values which somehow exist in the world. So this kind of starting point that we try to somehow figure that what are our main values is also make this kind of special character for the Finnish education. So I think that if I recommend that, I think of course that those one who like to be the principals, the teachers who like to develop something differently. I think there's a huge amount of the Romanian teachers who like to make some changes. But hopefully also somewhere there in the administration and let's say the government level would be interested to think about it, that is there something what we can take with. So
while Harry was speaking, I was quietly wondering if I ever in my almost 20 years of being a teacher heard anyone talking about values in Romanian schools. Because we have this bad habit, I would call it a bad habit, of I don't know, praising schools just for the results of exams. You notice that we have almost a mania here in Romania for building tops with good schools, bad schools, schools that have all the pupils pass the exams, and schools who don't have a student passing an exam. And I'm tempted to ask, why is this value talk this important after all? Isn't education about being pragmatic and having life skills and making money and being good at the business and so on, after all?
But I studied philosophy in the university. That was my second main subject.
Your mistake. That was your mistake.
That was my mistake. And you know that the ethics is actually belongs to practical theory of philosophy. So ethics is always very practical one. So I think that when we have spoke already that the Finnish school is rather practical one. So that's why I think that also values, we try to avoid that kind of situation that we speak values that way general, that what is, you know, that we can speak endlessly good life and we had a lot of theories, but we always try to think about it that what that theory actually really means in our school, how we implement in our everyday life that. For example, I give you one example. Our school have strongly related the idea of the well-being. So my question for my teachers when we develop the curriculum that is how your evaluation, how your testing model assessment build the students' well-being. Is it something which really help them or giving them that kind of feeling that okay, we are more healthy? Or is our evaluation assessment something which getting the well-being very low level? So I think that this is the way how we see these values, that they must be the part of the actions every time. Not something what has put in there, you know, in the nice letters somewhere up to curriculum and nobody even remember that this was our main idea.
Yeah. You speak frequently about this cooperation between the community, the schools, the local authorities. And I would ask you, Elena, as principal of a Finnish school in Romania, are the local authorities helping you there in Sibiu? Do you feel this bond that Ari is talking about with the local authorities?
I think that we need to look at the school in context and that everybody is contributing to it, including the local authorities, because we're serving clients one to the other, you know. Family is serving clients to the school, and we serve clients to the businesses and to the public authorities, because the result of our work will be put into practice in these institutions. Now, what we've been trying to build these communities around schools, not just our school, but for the authorities to realize they need to get involved in the schools. Sometimes they do. Sometimes it's fortunate that they leave you alone, so you don't stumble. But little by little, I think they realize the importance of it. And for example, the municipality this year in Sibiu has made a special line for bus line for pupils, for students, you know. So little by little there are things that are moving in that direction, and they come closer, they come to our events. It's also important to get to know each other, and from a cooperation basis and not from a fighting perspective, like you should be giving me that. No, nobody should be giving you anything. But together we can build something.
But if I look to Elena's school, where I have spent most of my working time here in Romania, the first time when I walked there, it's a beautiful building in the middle of the city, Sibiu, and there's a high walls surrounding the school, and I was thinking by myself that one of my duties to bring something Finnish there is that how we get over these walls, that because the city of Sibiu is offering a lot of different kind of possibilities for students. And then when we started to discuss with the teacher and principal in the school, I noticed that they already have done it something. And more when we look to Finnish school and we look to Elena school is that we like to make this kind of community where lot of non-profit organizations, a lot of professionals outside of the school coming the part of this education process. That's maybe the one theme of the book. I speak there quite a lot of learning communities. That's maybe the second name of the school what I use quite often because I like to see that way. And we teachers, you Doru, Elena, and I think we are learners also, that we must be maybe the main learners in the school because if we are not inside learning process ourselves, can we actually expect that our students do that? That we are only teaching and they learning. I think it's always both way, and in the best way it's also that after my classes or your classes you think about it that okay, I got it something.
I also think it's a question of availability of the teachers and the principals, and of the distance, perceived distance to authority.
Yeah.
Because in Finland the distance to the authority is very, very little. Our distance to authority, remember the Putin-Macron table, it's very, very far.
That's the Hofstadter, the scale of measuring the distance.
Exactly. And this is what's happening in schools as well, where there are schools with a small distance to authority. I think there's better communication and more learning.
Listening to you, I was thinking that maybe after all, what you are proposing is a type of principal and educational expert that it's not quite often met in Romania, because I would like to ask you, Ari, being the main learner in a school, admitting that there are things that you don't know and you have to learn all along with your students. Does this attitude, I don't know, diminish you in some way, make you be less expert than that if you wouldn't be a learner? Because this know-all attitude is kind of frequently met in the Romanian system. The teacher sees himself as an unpassable authority that knows the things that are right and just passes them on to the child.
I think that generally and the teacher's profession has been this kind of profession that we are the one who always have the right answers. But now when we look our society, how divided it actually is, that there's a lot of that kind of expertise, for example youngsters, that we are as a teachers we are far away about that expertise. So then we come into questions that are we only sharing the knowledge, or are we sharing this kind of competencies which actually help the students, let's say, learn more and be lifelong learners. So I think that this whole setting of the teacher training and also principal training must be put it totally different way, because we are not then the school is not only place where somebody can learn something. So let's say that we may be giving them the tools to be good learner. That's maybe even more important, that we give the knowledge which actually changed the overnight. There's millions of new things happening there in the world and nobody can actually follow that. So that's why this kind of right answer teacher time it's totally over, unfortunately.
Oh, you kind of regret it a little. Unfortunately, yeah. Let's talk about this a little, about this competence level, because there is some, I don't know, mythology around this competence-based education that we need to clarify. I would say, is giving competence to your students against knowledge? Is the competence model indifferent to knowledge, or it's about selecting only the knowledge that is proximally useful in your everyday life.
I think
Should we study Shakespeare?
Yes, of course.
Definitely.
Yeah. Should we learn philosophy? Is philosophy important?
Should be.
Yeah, I think so. I think that maybe one of the biggest misunderstanding of the Finnish education has been, let's say, worldwide. I heard the stories that okay, you have somehow lost the contents. You are not anymore interested about the contents of knowledge, and that's actually. I think about it that this competence-based teaching and learning, or phenomenal teaching and learning, is actually needing maybe even more this knowledge and contents than what was earlier. But the way how we use it is different. So we have if you look to Finnish curriculum, it's full of the contents, but the main question all the time for the teachers who use those material is that how you put it in that kind of practical mode where the student can understand that this is something what we actually use in our life, in our science, in our theoretical thinking. So I think it's challenging the teachers, and I can truly say that it has not been very easy to our teachers adapt also, because it's a new kind of mindset to be a teacher. And we just now maybe the training the first generation of the teachers who they have the new kind of skills and own competencies what they can use there in the classroom.
I also think that it's a fake war, because knowledge is part of a competence, and hard knowledge and content is a big part of a competency. But only you add the abilities. What do you do with the knowledge? How do you use it? That's also part of the competence. And how you are, the attitude. So basically these three elements form a competence, but it does not exclude, however, the knowledge. But you have the right knowledge to do something with it and serve to yourself and the others.
I think this term may be causing some problems of this doing something, because this doing something with the knowledge is often interpreted in a very narrow sense, in my opinion, of doing something extremely practical and I don't know,
it has
just in this moment, like putting a nail into a wall or making a soup. But you also have to, I don't know,
do an analysis.
Do an analysis. You also have to be able to, I don't know, courtship your future wife, or to have an aesthetic feelings of nature,
or speak on TV.
Or maybe have answers to ethical dilemmas. It's not about having a toolkit that you use. I wrote an article about 2 years ago about this false theory of the toolkit, that knowledge should be deposited in your brain like tools are deposited in a toolkit, and you just pump up the concept and use it in the specific situation that you need it, because human learning it's not like that. Therefore, it's also useful to know art, poetry, philosophy.
Can I give one example about the competence and how the competence-based education could affect the society and our students? One of the competencies in primary school, but also secondary, is multiliteracy, which means that multiliteracy means that how well you understand media and information, newspapers, whatever. The Finnish kids has been assessed in the local world ranking also in this multiliteracy, and we are the one of the best countries to avoid the fake news. And now when we look our television, what coming there, for example, your neighbors Ukraine and all that information, what is related to war, is that kind of fake news, some kind of experiment. There coming a lot of material but even, let's say, for the adults, it's very difficult to understand that is this something what really happening, or is it this propaganda? So I think that when we speak the competencies in this way, I hope that we continue this competence-based things, because it's giving those kind of skills for our kids what they really need in the future.
That's an interesting observation, because you Elena, probably know better that sometimes in Romania this highly educated type of being, this well-read and profound type of a being, is seen as not being suited for real life. Huh? We are talking in Romania about the school of life, who should be better than, and it is better than the real school. And I think this is a declaration of disappointment, after all, about the system, the educational system. I'm really glad that we have this had this clarifications here, because I think that many of our public battles about concepts here in Romania are based on the simple fact that the concepts aren't well known and well understood, and they are misused. Just simple as that. You mentioned the war in Ukraine. You were working, no?
Yeah,
with
I have
Ukrainians
been
before the
working
war
there
started.
since 2018 under the Ministry of Science and Education, Ukraine, and also under our Foreign Ministry, Finland.
So, do you think that Ukraine will recover soon after this war? Which will
That's a
eventually be over?
difficult question, but what I know already is that, for example, this European Union project, which were normally ended, or they plan to end it 2023, so they continue. UNICEF and many other organizations is now building the new kind of humanitarian and funding resources for Ukraine. But for example, in Kharkiv, where I have been work also, so around 50 or 60 school has been ruined totally. So actually we starting there, I say we starting there, the Ukrainian people, hopefully together with many other hands, starting to reconstruct totally new schools, new education buildings starting from early beginning. So that will be really big issue. But also I think that there has happened some of that kind of development during this 1 month, which actually could be the start of the something new. We're running the program New Ukrainian School. Now we are actually building the new Ukrainian schools, I think so.
Talking about the Ukrainian war, it came to my mind that 2 or 3 days ago, an educational newspaper here in Romania had a poll asking teachers if they talked with the students about the war in schools, and lots of them, the majority, said that they didn't, because they haven't had a precise order from the inspectorate to do that. And sadly, this says something about the relationship between teachers and authority here in Romania. I have the feelings, I always had the feeling that the Romanian teacher, who is not necessarily not prepared for his discipline, is always in fear of making a mistake, is kept with this conscience of being always guilty of something that he couldn't manage to do, and this something is always, or most of the time, about some paper of a sort.
So what will be the punishment when you make the mistakes?
I don't know.
We don't know that.
I made a lot of mistakes and no one punished me yet, but this is not
You're still waiting,
yeah,
fearfully.
I'm still waiting fearfully, yeah.
Can
Yeah,
I
please.
just add something that In Finland, I think that if I read correctly, our national agency sent this kind of message for school that it's good to discuss about the Ukrainian war. And then they have a group of the people who are specialists in this kind of situation, and they give this kind of, let's say, advices that how you do it that in primary, how you do it that in the older students. But the idea is that if they like to talk about this topic, then you just quit your normal daily work, whatever mathematics or physics it will be, and then you give them the time to discuss, because it affects everybody. So yeah, maybe there's a difference between us.
The approaches.
Yeah.
Ari, my last question for this evening is, what would you say to those who would say that Ari Poca wouldn't think like that if you were a principal in Romania and not in Finland? He would see that a lot of these concepts are not suitable for Romania.
Yeah. I would say that I have seen many different type of the principles also in Finland, and I think that maybe some things what is common for us is this idea that what is our main duty in the school. But same time as I could say that the Finnish education is not only changed because that some of the people in the Helsinki, our capital, get some bright ideas that how to continue. It has actually developed quite a lot of that way also, that some schools have started implement something what was not even legislated. But then our parliament and the people who understand something education, they have noticed that okay, they are doing something what we can add in our legislation. So I strongly believe that in each system this kind of down top movement is possible. But it needs of course a little bit courage and of course responsibility, and you must put yourself there and sometimes make those mistakes also, otherwise nothing happening.
You will allow me to end the meeting tonight, this evening, with a passage from the book. I will read it in Romanian because I think it would be funny to retranslate from Romania your English translation, and I think we'll lose some things on the way. So I'll read some words from the prologue that's been written by you on June 15th, 2015. Directorul finlandez dispune de un mediu de lucru excepțional. Dacă privim lucrurile dintr-o perspectivă generală, personalul școlar și cel auxiliar formează cele mai semnificative concentrări de profesioniști în cele mai multe dintre sutele de municipalități finlandeze. Chiar și în orașul meu, care este centru universitar, nu găsim foarte multe arii de activitate în care vasta majoritatea angajaților să se poată mândri cu un titlu academic. Profesorii cu grad înalt de pregătire înseamnă atât provocări cât și oportunități pentru cei aflați la conducerea școlilor. Principala provocare este aceea că foarte multe dintre poncifele tradiționale ale teoriilor managementului și leadership-ului nu ajută foarte mult. Directorul trebuie să ia decizii bine argumentate și să implice consistent acest personal foarte bine pregătit în managementul și conducerea școlii. Mai mult, o școală finlandeză nu poate fi condusă pur și simplu dând ordine. Conducerea trebuie construită pe fundamentul încrederii și al profesionalismului. Pe de altă parte, cu un model operațional bine construit, școala se poate bucura de cele mai multe contribuții ale profesorilor, iar sarcina fundamentală a directorilor este aceea de a crea oportunități pentru profesioniștii autonomi. Corpul profesoral bine instruit are un rol central în dezvoltarea instituției școlare. Finlanda a reușit să mobilizeze aptitudinile profesionale ale profesorilor pentru a dezvolta educația atât la nivel național cât și local. Din punctul de vedere al directorului, munca de dezvoltare instituțională se referă la împărtășirea unor cunoștințe și abilități comune, sarcină care combină cunoașterea aprofundată a subiectului, resursele existente și recunoașterea noilor posibilități de învățare. Un director care a învățat să împartă cu alții atât autoritatea, cât și responsabilitățile, a înțeles pe deplin esența profesiei sale. I would like to thank you both for being here with us this evening. I wish you good luck, Elena, in expanding the area schools network in Romania. You opened new schools recently.
Yeah, Thank you very much, Doru. We opened in Cluj last year, and we're opening in Brașov.
In Brașov. It's a dream of mine to have one of your Finnish schools here in Galați.
I'm famous for making my dreams come true, so I can make your dream mine.
My dreams come true. I really thank you very much. I hope you feel nice here in our city, and we'll wait for both of you to see you next time on a new TV show. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And see you all in a healthy mood.